When David declares, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want," he is not speaking of easy wealth or empty promises. He is revealing a vision of life where direction precedes abundance, purpose precedes profit, and peace precedes decisions. In a world where so many chase after money without knowing where they are going, Psalm 23 teaches us that true prosperity begins with correct choices, conscious management, and a mindset strengthened by faith. Throughout this video, you'll see that each verse of this psalm connects directly to situations you face today. Financial decisions, business challenges, times of crisis, opportunities that seem scarce, and even the emotional exhaustion that hinders growth. Here, faith and practice go hand in hand. It's not just about believing, but about understanding how spiritual principles shape daily attitudes that generate real results. So stay with me until the end, because every part of this video was designed to transform the way you see money, work, and success in light of Psalm 23. And if this topic is already speaking to you, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. When we understand that Psalm 23 was not written as an abstract poem, but as a declaration of spiritual reality applied to life, everything changes. The phrase, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want," is often repeated automatically, almost as a consolation for difficult times. However, David was not denying the existence of challenges, losses, or battles. He was affirming something much deeper. The absence of lack does not stem from a quantity of resources, but from the source that governs your life. This promise goes beyond the spiritual because it redefines how you relate to money, work, and success. When God is presented as a shepherd, it implies guidance, care, correction, and continuous provision. A shepherd not only feeds his sheep, he chooses the path, protects them from dangers, and prevents them from getting lost. Applied to financial life, this means that prosperity doesn't begin with how much you earn, but with who guides your decisions. Many people live in constant scarcity, not because they earn little, but because they walk without direction, jumping from opportunity to opportunity, guided by fear or comparison. "I shall not want" is not a promise of irresponsible excesses, but of sufficiency aligned with purpose. Lack is living always chasing after something, always in debt, always anxious about tomorrow. Lack is earning a lot and still living insecurely. Psalm 23 directly confronts this modern mentality, teaching that when the source is right, the flow adjusts. When God guides, even the little is well managed. When He does not guide, even the much is not enough. In today's context, where success is measured solely by numbers, this verse calls us to deep reflection. How many financial decisions are made without prayer, without planning, and without purpose? How many businesses begin solely for profit, without considering values, impact, and sustainability? The promise of Psalm 23 reminds us that true prosperity is the result of alignment, not haste. Before multiplying resources, it is necessary to strengthen trust. Before growing externally, it is necessary to adjust the mindset internally. David wrote this psalm as someone who had experienced both scarcity and abundance. He was a shepherd, a fugitive, a king, and a leader. He knew the feeling of having nothing and also of ruling with authority. Yet, his declaration does not change according to the situation. This teaches us that the promise does not depend on circumstances, but on the spiritual and mental position you occupy. Those who understand that God is the shepherd do not compromise principles for financial shortcuts, do not despair in times of crisis, and do not become corrupt in times of abundance. This promise also confronts the anxiety that dominates so many lives today. Financial anxiety arises when control is in the wrong hands. When everything depends solely on your effort, your salary, or your business, any instability becomes a threat. But when you understand that there is a higher leadership guiding your steps, your decisions become firmer, more strategic, and more conscious. You stop acting impulsively and start acting out of conviction. In today's world, one of the biggest financial mistakes is not a lack of opportunity, but a lack of discernment. Many people wear themselves out chasing after everything at once, believing that quantity of attempts guarantees success. However, Psalm 23 teaches us the opposite. The shepherd doesn't lead his sheep just anywhere. He doesn't choose dry, unstable, or dangerous terrain. He knows the way, assesses the terrain, and leads with intention. Applied to practical life, this means that prosperity doesn't come from doing more, but from doing better, in the right place and at the right time. When David speaks of resting in green pastures, he reveals a powerful principle. Healthy growth does not come from constant exhaustion. Many believe that working non-stop, living overburdened, and sacrificing everything is a sign of commitment. However, in light of this psalm, we see that God does not lead his children to environments of continuous wear and tear, but to spaces where there is nourishment, balance, and progressive growth. Resting here does not mean passivity, but security. It means knowing that you are in the right place, investing your energy in the right way. Lush green pastures represent strategic choices. These are decisions that may not seem the quickest or most appealing, but they offer long-term stability. They are opportunities that nourish, not just promise. How many people today find themselves financially exhausted because they persisted in barren lands, businesses misaligned with their values, or paths that never proved successful? Lack of direction leads to wasted time, money, and emotional well-being. This principle also confronts us with haste. Haste is the enemy of healthy growth. When someone moves without direction, accepts any proposal, enters into any partnership, and invests without analysis, the result is almost always frustration. Psalm 23 shows us that God doesn't push, he leads. And being led requires trust, patience, and sensitivity to listen. Often, the greatest sign of financial maturity is knowing how to say no to opportunities that seem good, but aren't green pastures. Therefore, Psalm 23 reveals to us that prosperity doesn't begin with visible abundance, but with the choice of path. Before thinking about how much you can earn, you need to reflect on where you are investing your life. The shepherd leads first, feeds later, and multiplies in due time. And when this direction is accepted, something begins to change internally. If this content is making sense to you, please like it, because that helps this message reach more people, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next content that combines biblical principles and personal growth. He leads me beside still waters. This passage reveals an essential principle for those who wish to prosper without losing their way. After choosing the right path, pressure inevitably arises. Pressure to decide quickly, pressure to maintain results, pressure not to back down in the face of difficulties. And it is in this scenario that management becomes as important as vision. Still waters don't mean the absence of problems, but rather the presence of control. A shepherd leads his sheep away from turbulent waters because he knows that, even though they are a source of life, they can become dangerous. The same is true of money, business, and opportunities. What should sustain can drown you when not well managed. Many financial setbacks don't happen due to a lack of resources, but due to a lack of balance in critical moments. Financial pressure has a specific power. It accelerates decisions. Under pressure, people spend what they can't afford, invest in what they don't understand, and take on commitments they can't sustain. Psalm 23 shows us that God doesn't lead his children to environments of despair, but to spaces where the mind is calmed and decisions are made with clarity. Management, in this context, begins from within. Those who don't govern their emotions will hardly govern their money. In today's world, crises are inevitable. Economic instability, market changes, fierce competition, and unforeseen events are all part of the journey. The difference lies not in who faces the pressure, but in how they react to it. Calm waters represent the ability to maintain clarity even when the external environment is turbulent. It's the skill of not confusing urgency with importance, nor necessity with impulse. This principle teaches us that prospering requires knowing when to slow down. Many people believe that, in difficult times, the only way out is to act faster and take more risks. However, biblical wisdom points to another path. When shepherd guides gently, he does not force, push, or expose to danger. He leads with care. Applied to financial life, this means reviewing expenses, adjusting strategies, strengthening reserves, and above all, avoiding decisions motivated by fear. Another key point is that still waters restore strength. They allow sheep to drink effortlessly, without struggle, and without danger. In practice, this speaks to financial organization. Having control over income and expenses, understanding where the money is going, and creating safety margins are attitudes that bring peace. Those who live on the financial edge constantly live in turbulent waters. Any unforeseen event becomes a threat. Those who manage wisely create a tranquil environment that sustains growth. Managing under pressure also involves a long-term vision. Decisions made solely to alleviate an immediate problem can compromise years of progress. Psalm 23 reminds us that God works with continuous processes, not desperate solutions. He guides step by step, preserving the future while resolving the present. This principle is essential for business and personal finance. Healthy growth requires temporary sacrifices for sustainable gains. Another statement, "It refreshes my soul," has a profound meaning, as refreshing the soul means renewing one's vision. It's about seeing meaning again in what one does. It's about recovering motivation that doesn't depend solely on immediate results. God doesn't restore merely to comfort, He restores to empower again. A restored soul dreams again, plans again, and acts with intention. In practical terms, this is reflected in greater clarity in setting priorities, courage to correct course, and a willingness to build something solid, even if little by little. This principle also teaches us that healthy productivity stems from balance. We live in a culture that glorifies excess, but Psalm 23 points to restoration as a source of growth. When the soul is healthy, work flows better. Ideas become organized, discipline is strengthened, and decisions become more assertive. It's not about working less, but about working with renewed purpose. The restoration of the soul is also deeply connected to the liberation from invisible burdens. Guilt over past mistakes, fear of repeating failures, accumulated frustrations, and constant comparisons corrode the ability to move forward. Many entrepreneurs, professionals, and leaders carry wounds that have never been treated. They try to compensate with more effort, more hours, and more pressure, but remain internally blocked. Psalm 23 reveals that God does not ignore these wounds. He treats the root before demanding fruit. When the soul is restored, the relationship with money also changes. It ceases to be a source of anxiety and becomes a tool. The person stops seeking validation in financial results and begins to see work as part of a greater purpose. This generates consistency. Emotionally restored people don't give up easily, don't become corrupted under pressure, and don't get lost when results are slow in coming. They remain steadfast because they know who they are and where they are going. This restoration process also prepares the individual for new levels of responsibility. God does not grant expansion to those who are still broken inside. Before expanding territory, He strengthens the heart. Before multiplying resources, He heals motivation. This is fundamental in the current context, where many desire rapid growth but are not emotionally prepared to handle it. The restoration of the soul creates maturity, and maturity sustains growth. May these principles not remain merely knowledge, but become daily practice, shaping your mindset and your decisions. If this message resonated with you, please like it to support this content, subscribe to the channel, and activate notifications to continue learning how to unite faith, purpose, and growth in all areas of life.